This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm your host, Bob Considine. Well, the FY21 state budget is now in the books, and the state legislature is back working on business policies that are both good and bad. Here to tell us all about them is NJBIA Vice President of Government Affairs, Christopher Emigholz. Chris, thanks so much for being here. Before we get into those big ticket items, I wanted to get into some good news first. As we tape this, just about a week before we tape this, Governor Murphy announced $100 million in CARES Act funding for business. Good news?
Definitely good news. The EDA has rolled out several initiatives through this pandemic to try to help the small businesses, the ones that are struggling the most. Right. And the EDA has put these programs out there. They've been immediately oversubscribed, right. And we're very happy that the governor's come back now and announced a phase 3 for the EDA Small Business Grant Program. Mm-hmm. In that announcement, there was $95 million directly for businesses.
Right.
70 of it is for a phase 3 of the existing grant programs that are focused on small businesses. But the excellent news in this phase 3 is that the size of the businesses is a little bit smaller, still small, but not quite as small as the first two phases. And the amount of grants are a little bit larger because businesses are hurting. And they need more than $5,000, which was the first phase. They need more than what they've gotten so far. And what the governor's done here is 70 million of that 95 is for these grants. 35 of it is for the restaurants and the hospitality businesses, food service, that are most hurting. Like we all know that they're most hurting. Right. They're the ones that are most visible. They're the ones that we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of closures throughout the state.
Absolutely.
And it's heartbreaking to see what's going on in our downtowns and our main streets. Right. And so the money's focused on those. Outside of the 35, there's 20 for just general businesses. Then there's 15 held for micro businesses, the smallest of the small guys. Because again, those small ones are the ones, they don't have the reserve or the surplus. They don't have the ability to maybe wiggle room within their budget, and so they need some help. So that 70 is going for that. Outside of that 70, there's 15 million additional that is going for expanding a DCA program for rent relief, right. And expanding an existing EDA initiative for access to PPE, which that personal protective equipment we heard about early in the pandemic was in short supply. Right. The governor has come up with an interesting EDA, Innovative Outside the Box program to support the manufacturers of this personal protective equipment and the small businesses that want to access it at a discounted rate.
Right, and we should also mention another $5 million for families with food insecurities.
Yes, yes, food insecurities, and it's important to focus on the households, because if the households, the consumers aren't held harmless and protected as much as possible, they're not going to the restaurants, they're not going out and spending money the way they usually do. So this was an important effort by the governor to help our economy.
Right. So the $100 million question, I was going to say the $1 million question is this enough? I mean, as we sit here today, businesses, restaurants still at 25%, could change soon, but they've been 25% for a long time. What is the long-term prognosis? And you mentioned these things are oversubscribed pretty quickly.
The honest answer and the balanced answer is we thank the EDA for what they've done. We thank the EDA for dedicating what they have and continuing to increase that, but it's not enough. Right. The business sector, especially these small businesses, they've either been forced to close earlier in the pandemic, now they've been forced to limit their operations. And we still need to remember, as of today, all businesses in the state are limited in some capacity. Yeah. If you can work from home, you're supposed to be working from home. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to have full capacity in a movie theater, in a restaurant, in a meeting room, working with your colleagues, collaborating on things. So that lack of capacity, businesses are hurting. Mm-hmm. Every business in the state is not operating the way they used to before this pandemic. So they need help. And we've seen states around the nation dedicate a larger portion of their federal relief towards small businesses, towards helping them. Because again, the businesses are the ones that are suffering. Honestly, we need to focus on the public health crisis. And so the hospitals, the folks that are sick, the folks that need medical treatment, that needs to be the priority. After that, I think you're hard-pressed to say that anything should be a second priority outside of the business community that has been forced to close.
Right. All right, so let's turn to policy. And it is kind of related because we talked about limited capacities. It's resulted in a lot of unemployment for 2020. New Jersey used to have a very robust unemployment insurance fund. Now, not so much. What is staring New Jersey businesses in the face in 2021 because of this?
It's scary, but the unemployment insurance payroll tax is an automatic tax. And so the legislature and governor do not have to act, and yet taxes go up. And taxes go up and down based upon several factors that we'll get into, I'm sure. But we're looking at, if there's no action taken by the governor and legislature to soften the blow, we're looking at approximately $1 billion payroll tax increase spread around the state next year. And what's even more devastating about that, it's not $1 billion tax on the folks that are earning a lot of money right now. It's not based upon profits. It's not based upon anything besides jobs. And so it's a tax on jobs.
Right.
And because your number of jobs should be based upon how much goes into the UI fund. So it makes sense, but this automatic tax on jobs is going to happen.
So what is out there now to try to remedy this situation? There's a bill that I guess passed in Senate Labor last month. What is this about?
So we were very happy to see the Senate Labor take some action on this bill. Chairman Madden of the Senate Labor Committee sponsored this bill, and coincidentally, 10 years ago during the Great Recession, when the unemployment fund was in a tough shape, he also acted in a bipartisan manner with Senator Oroho back then on fixing the fund.
So there's history for this.
There is history for this, and at the Labor Committee, that history was brought up. It's a history. BIA was very involved 10 years ago. BIA is involved again today. It's something that we were asking for. So as I said, it's an automatic tax. We can't stop it entirely. But what we can do is ameliorate the blow.
Right.
And the tax is calculated in two ways. And it's kind of, if you think about a matrix, and there's rows and columns. Number one is the column for the unemployment tax is based upon the overall health, the fiscal solvency of the fund.
Right.
And so if the fund has boatloads of money and is in good shape to weather the next recession, then taxes actually automatically go down. Obviously, the fund's not in good shape right now. We have record high unemployments. So we've also taken out loans from the federal government to make sure everyone's getting their unemployment check. So the combination of that owing back money to the federal government and the fund being very, very low means it's going to be an automatic payroll tax hike. The column, we are in column B, which is the second best. We're going to go to column E plus 10, which is the very worst, if we do nothing. And that's automatically you shift to those columns. The next kind of calculation is on the rows in this matrix. And the row is calculated based upon your personal individual experience rating of the employer. So if an employer has laid off a lot of people in their history or have the nature of their business, seasonal businesses come to mind where there often are lots of hires, lots of terminations, lots of hires, lots of terminations, then they're going to have a higher experience rating. If an employer never lays off anybody and has never terminated anybody, then they're going to have a very low experience rating. So that determines the row, and so the combination of the row and the column tells you what your payroll tax rate's going to be. What the bill that went through Senate Labor, and we hope is going to move through the Assembly at some point soon, that bill, number one, it says that any layoffs that happened during the pandemic through no fault of your own, no one saw this, no one predicted this, no one was ready for it, those layoffs do not count against your personal experience rating, so that's going to soften that.
I remember that term,
And the important part of that, I think, is, again, those are the businesses, if they've had to lay off a lot of people, they're probably the ones on the brink. And I think it's good policy to figure out what you can do to save those guys that are on the brink, do everything we can to make sure the businesses on the brink get a little extra relief, extra support. So I like the personal experience rating not being held harmless. The second part is that row, the column. The columns, unfortunately, do have to go up. But what this bill does is it artificially says the column's not going to go from B to E plus 10 as the formula says. You're going to go up like one column at a time for the next couple of years. And the bill's also thoughtfully written where you go up one at a time, but if there ever gets to a time where, for whatever reason, there's a lot more money in the fund, the economy has come back like gangbusters, then we actually will adjust the tax and we don't have to keep going up one at a time, but it's got a schedule of going up in a measured, predictable way. And predictableness is something we talk about in the business community as anytime you can have a manageable, predictable increase in whether it's minimum wage, whether it's taxes, that's helpful to businesses. They hate the unpredictable. They hate when they can't budget for something. This would make it more manageable.
Right, and I remember during your testimony you even mentioned you planted the seed of, hey, if there's federal funds left over, maybe shift some of those of the unemployment insurance fund.
Excellent point, Bob.
Yeah.
Something we actually just saw the state of Georgia dedicate some of their CARES Act money to the UI fund.
Right.
And if we're hearing talk, and unfortunately the EDA and governor recently had said, like, we're worried about spending all of this money in time. It's a tight time frame. The CARES Act money's got to be spent by the end of this calendar year. If there's any chance that we might not spend all the money that we have, perfect way to take care of it is just put everything into the unemployment insurance trust fund, avoid this massive tax that's on the horizon, and we might still have to have a smaller tax, but again, the legislation that Senate Labor Committee doing, plus some of the federal money, would help employers that are struggling as much as possible.
Okay, Kurt, so there's one more controversial proposal that is currently floating. It's called the financial transaction tax that would in effect levy a microcent tax on electronic stock trades processed in New Jersey. What's going on here? I mean, didn't we just have a whole bunch of new taxation?
I'm asking the same question. I think a lot of people in the business community are as well. We just came out of a budget that the business community thought was beating us up when we're down.
Right.
And we saw $700 million in new taxes in this budget. We saw $4.5 billion of irresponsible borrowing. We saw new spending that was not necessary.
Right.
All of this together is going to hurt the taxpayers of the state. And we thought taxes were done. We thought we can we're done for taxes for a little bit. We could move on to helping business.
Yeah, exactly.
And within a month of that, we're looking at this new financial transactions tax. It was recently up in the Assembly Financial Institutions Committee for a discussion only, which thankfully it's a good chance to kind of vet the bill and talk about the pros and cons.
Good process.
Good process. Yeah. And I think what is nice in that process, and I think was telling at this hearing, is 17 people signed up to speak against the bill from academics, labor, business, the exchanges, the banks, and there was not a single person that signed up to oppose the bill.
Right.
Problem with this bill is people like to say it's a tax on Wall Street. I think it's nothing like that. People like to say it's politically easy to tax Wall Street. I think it's nothing like that.
Right.
You are taxing the basic building block investments of our economy. You're taxing a teenager thinking about buying their first car. You're taxing a family just starting that's going to buy their first home.
Right.
You're taxing retirees that depend upon investments for their livelihood. All of these things are not possible without investments. And we need to support that investment. We need to support this industry.
Right.
And largely the industry is becoming more technology dependent.
Right.
What technology dependent means it's very mobile.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing that it's mobile. It's a good thing that the technology, innovation, we want New Jersey to be the innovation state.
Right.
But there are some people out there that have said, oh, New Jersey can tax Wall Street because it's a captive industry. It's not going to go anywhere because Wall Street's in Manhattan, New Jersey's right next door, that's never going to change. But it's not like taxing oil in Texas and Alaska.
Right.
Oil's not moving. There's no one that's going to do anything. Oil's not going to pick up and leave the state.
I've got a well in the backyard, in my backyard.
Well, maybe you're lucky enough, Bob, but most New Jerseyans are not looking at those natural resources. We don't have the natural resources that we can tax and are captive. We have something that some people want to take advantage of because we're close to Wall Street, and these data centers have historically located where they're close to Wall Street and proximity to Wall Street. But we've seen headlines and many articles about they're looking at Texas. Yeah. They recently did a dry run if they can actually run their exchange data centers through Chicago, and they can without a problem.
Yeah.
And so data industries, because of the advancements in technology, because of since Hurricane Sandy and since 9/11, data centers have expanded beyond just Manhattan for security reasons, for needing that backup. But we can't lose that in New Jersey. This industry, the financial securities industry, contributes about $1.4 billion in state and local taxes to our economy. They contribute about 12% of the corporate business tax. They employ about 40,000 people in the state, similar to the construction industry, by the way. Right. So if you see this industry leave altogether, that $1.4 billion becomes zero. That 12% of CBT becomes zero. The state actually looking at this $500 million as the estimate that they could get from this tax, looking at that $500 million, maybe it's tempting to some people, but that $500 million could turn into zero or a negative number if people are leaving the state.
And this does not help our business competitiveness at all.
Not at all. New Jersey has a reputation for being a state that is looking to the taxpayer, looking to business when times are tough. Right. And we need to change that dialogue here. What we have to do is We're looking at $500 million to help this borrowing that we just did, to help maybe next year's budget. That's going to be a tough budget again, just like this past budget. We have to move away from where are the new taxes that could help the budget and what are the new structural reforms to help the budget. And so anything we can do to shift that debate, and I think the discussion only hearing that we had on this definitely was shifting that debate, because no one was in support of this and everyone talked about the ability to actually hurt New Jersey more than help New Jersey. We got to get to the things that will help the taxpayer, make our state more affordable, not less affordable.
Well, Christopher Emigholz, thank you so much for your passion on this and bring your intellect as usual and standing up for New Jersey's business community. Come back anytime.
Thank you, Bob. Always happy to be here.
All right, and we'll be right back right after this.
These days, it's anything but business as usual. That's why working together is more important than ever. AT&T is committed to keeping you connected so you can keep your patients cared for, your customers served, your students inspired, and your employees closer than ever. Our network is resilient. Our people are strong. Our job is to keep your business connected. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do.
Welcome back to Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, let's turn to the world of accounting. One firm we're proud to call a member here at NJBIA is SKC, a full-service accounting firm based in Boonton. Here to discuss all the great things going on at SKC is partner at SKC, Andrea Diaz. Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Okay, so before we get in, we're going to get into data analytics, which is something SKC does a great job with. But tell us about the company. How long the firm? How long has it been around?
Sure. So SKC has been around for almost 40 years.
Wow.
We started with a vision in one room, and now we are a company of 25 individuals, which, interestingly enough, are 21 women. And from the very beginning, we focus on small business owners, entrepreneurs, and family-owned businesses, and it's where our core values, our mission, and our client service model really started. And all these years later, still is what we focus on, and we really understand we are our clients. We are a business here in New Jersey, a small business owner. We are entrepreneurs, and we speak the language of entrepreneurs. So we understand their struggles, their challenges, and it's who we love working with.
All right. So one of the things in my research about SKC, it seems like it's a really unique culture. All of you guys are entrenched, working with each other in a collaborative space. What's that like for you guys?
So we, unlike many other firms, all have cubicles. Nobody has an office.
Oh, really?
So it lends itself to an open working environment where we're all working together. We're hearing each other's conversations, learning from them. It's very easy to have an open door policy when you don't have any doors. It lends itself to creative collaboration when you're talking about sometimes everyday things, and that's when an idea will come across on how we can help a client or what to do in a particular situation. As I'm sure you know, we have a daycare on site, so it allows our working parents to see their children during the day, but it also allows everybody else to get a little children time in, so when there are birthday parties, we celebrate, and it's very nice.
Very nice. So let's talk about taking on a client.
Sure.
And the value you present to them. This is not, you're not just doing their taxes here. You're getting into their world. Can you get into a little bit greater detail on that?
We're always going to have to file tax returns and prepare financial statements. Every business is required to do it. But where that ends is where the true value for us begins. You know, anybody can crunch the numbers to prepare the statements and the return, but it takes a different type of accountant to be able to interpret those numbers and recommend beyond what those numbers provide. We really try to understand our business owner clients at a deeper level. We're constantly curious, asking questions. We want to understand where they're going, what their goals are. It's the only way for us to help them get there.
Right. So it's all about being more proactive than reactive, it sounds like.
100%. Yes, yes. We want to plan. We want to know what's coming down the pike in next year, 2 years, 5 years. We want to know. One of the first questions that we ask a client when bringing them on is, what does your someday look like? What does your succession plan look like? You know, what are your ultimate goals? And it may not be for 10 or 20 years, but it may be right around the corner.
Right.
So we want to know because it puts us in the best position to advise and recommend accordingly.
Some of the depth that you guys take, I mentioned on the onset, was data analytics.
Yes.
What is this tool that you guys really separate yourself from the rest of the pack with? What is it and how does it help your clients?
In its most simple terms, data analytics is utilizing data to help solve problems and make strategic decisions. So everybody has data, lots of it. They have financial data, they have employee data, they have client data, they have marketing data, and it's being able to transform that raw data into visual representations that will allow the business owner to visualize the story that the numbers are telling.
That's it.
So it's really helping them make strategic decisions and solve problems.
Okay, so are your clients even aware that they have this data sometimes?
You know, everybody knows that they have data.
Right.
I don't think people realize how much of it they have and how much is financial and non-financial, because if you think of all of the systems that an entrepreneur has, they have a CRM system, they have an accounting system, they have an HR database, they have marketing systems, social media platforms. So there's so much, and in every platform and every software and every program, point of sale, and every tool that they use to run their business every day, it's collecting data.
What is the reaction from clients when you want to get that entrenched with them? Is it a hard sell for them? Do you have to convince them that this is really going to help you?
So most times we'll start with an example and show them, since we're constantly asking our clients questions of, what are your obstacles? What are you currently dealing with? What keeps you up at night? How can we best help you run your business? When we hear their problems, we want to help solve them, and we know how their data can do that.
Okay.
So we may take one of their smaller or an example of it, and then we show them, show them the illustration, and they're in awe.
Oh,
really? They didn't realize, they didn't realize that it was capable, or they didn't realize, and then they want more. Once you give them a little piece of it, then they want to, can you do it this way, and can you do it that way, and what if I change this? What if I change that? So,
and then the onus is on you to work even harder for them, right?
Right, exactly. But it's all great, and sometimes it starts financial, sometimes it starts non-financial.
Right. So can you get into that a little bit? What are some kind of tangible examples of this that you can explain to our audience?
Sure. So a financial may be as easy, and this is what we get very often. It's a more common question. When is the right time to hire someone, or when is the right time to let somebody go, or are we using our staff to their capacity?
Right.
They don't want to hire somebody before they have the available funds to do it. So we most recently had a client, they wanted to know when they should hire their next project manager. And based on all of their data, we projected and concluded that within 6 months, they should really have somebody on the ground running. So they were going to start hiring and going through the recruiting process now. Non-financial example that's quite interesting is the marketing aspect. Particular client wanted to know how their marketing efforts are, what type of return on investment their marketing efforts are, and they wanted to see the correlation between social media posts and website traffic. So we were actually able to take their social media data, their website traffic, as well as their email, constant contact data, and combine it all into graphs and reports that show them the correlation between their marketing campaigns, their marketing efforts, and new client leads.
Right. Wow. I mean, I would assume when you're talking to accountants, you're talking numbers and things like that. But these are different type of numbers. It's not dollars and cents per se.
It goes far beyond the numbers, Bob. It really does. It's and it can go in even deeper into your employees and their behavior, and HR and your clients and their behavior, and profitability by product. Can we do it? Of course. And do most entrepreneurs want to know their best-selling product? Yes.
Right.
And we create that as well. But it creates a whole different relationship with our clients when we go beyond the numbers.
Right. What makes an accountant at SKC a data scientist?
So we are by no means data scientists, but I think today and in the future, everybody is going to have some familiarity or experience with data. You know, as accountants, and it's not just about the numbers, but we understand the numbers and we understand how they interact.
Right.
And then we take the knowledge and wisdom that we know about our clients and apply that to the outcomes so we can help interpret what the data is showing. Raw data alone doesn't help anyone. It doesn't provide business insights. It doesn't provide trends.
Or perspective.
Or perspective, right. And we use it very often for forward projections, you know, what may happen, predictive insights, so that we can see decisions that we're making now, what that may look like in 2 or 3 years from now.
Right. I wanted to turn just a little bit about entrepreneurism. You guys, SKC, are known as the
Entrepreneurs Accounting Firm.
Entrepreneurs Accounting Firm, which is a great label. What is the spirit that you find of entrepreneurism in New Jersey? This is a pretty challenging state to do business. What are you finding from your clients in terms of their spirit?
Are you from New Jersey, Bob?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So you know as well as I do that New Jersey is a different animal, and most of our New Jersey entrepreneurs are always looking forward, and no matter what adversity comes to them, they are not going to stay down. They do not know how. They're innovative, they're creative, and they're going to make it work, and they're going to find a way to do it. And that, especially over the last 10 months, has been all that we've seen.
Really?
We haven't seen many of our, I would say, I haven't seen any of my clients say, I'm just going to fold it, you know, put in the towel. It's, what can I do differently? How can I change and make it this better? What can I invent or create that's going to help push my business forward?
Wow. So these are people who've already established entrepreneurs. Are you getting a lot of new entrepreneurs coming in at all? Is that too soon?
We do see a lot of that, and I haven't seen it as much as I've seen it in prior recessions. I don't think that it has come full circle yet. We've seen a lot of our business owners do different things in their business, create different product lines, and innovate in that way. We haven't seen too many brand new businesses, but I think it's only a matter of time. They're, I think, always, and I've said this many times before, recession breeds innovation, and in this state, I'm sure we will see an increase in startups and new entrepreneurs very soon.
So the spirit of entrepreneurism is well. What is the level of confidence you're seeing from these startup companies?
I think the confidence level is pretty high. I'm actually writing a book on this exact topic right now, is the spirit of entrepreneurs, the tenacity and resilience, their determination. I've collected a tremendous amount of stories, especially over the last 10 months. I've been collecting them for decades now, but I think we've seen a lot in the last 10 months, and telling their stories will be extremely interesting to many people to see exactly how our entrepreneurs think.
Well, Andrea, we look forward to that book coming out. Good luck with it the rest of the way, and come back when it comes out. And to our audience, SKC is more business partner than just your basic accountant. Go look them up. How can people look up
our website, www.skcandco.com.
Great. Andrea Diaz, partner of SKC, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, now it's time to spotlight another one of NJBIA's New Good Neighbor Award winners. This time around, we say hats off to the Serratelli Hat Company in Newark. Let's take a look.
Well, the Serratelli Hat Company is a fourth-generation business. We started in 1878, and we manufacture cowboy hats here in Newark, New Jersey. Well, we decided to completely gut renovate the offices because it hadn't been done since the 1950s when my father bought the building. So we had shag carpets and old paneling, pine walls, things like that. And I've been coming down here since the time I was like 6. I mean, by the time I was a teenager, my mother was dropping me off outside at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after school so I could come in here and work. So nothing had been changed in all that time, and I'm 55 years old now. So 2 years ago, we decided to expand the footprint and do a major renovation to the building to kind of celebrate the renaissance in the area that's been going on in Newark recently. So we put in a parking lot to accommodate our employees. We repointed the exterior brick of the building. We put in new windows. We put in a really cool break room with charging stations. We did a Western themed conference room. We did landscaping and security gates. We even went so far as to put in lightscaping outside so that we can celebrate all the holidays, whether it's Christmas with red and green, or Halloween with orange and black, just more of a feel-good kind of thing, and just to bring some more attention to the area. So we did the renovation because we really wanted to make a better workspace for our employees, but bigger picture is we really wanted to show our commitment to the neighborhood by beautifying the outside, and also to Newark to show that we are here to stay.
And a great story there with the Serratelli Hat Company. And speaking of great stories, we now bring in Anthony Berretteri, the editor-in-chief of New Jersey Business Magazine, who's here to tell us what's going on in the November issue of the magazine. Anthony, I understand COVID-19 liability is a big topic in this month's issue.
That's right. And thanks, Bob, for having me on the show again. You're right, COVID-19 liability in the workplace is a big issue. And in this story, we hear from a number of attorneys who discuss some of the initiatives that employers could take via the creation of well thought out safety policies and procedures to protect themselves from COVID-19 related lawsuits. Lawyers in the story stress to be proactive, and that workplace safety policies are extremely important at this time. And employees must thoroughly understand these directives and their own responsibilities when they return to their workplace. So what should policies include? Well, they should include work from home, safety and cybersecurity, health screenings, containment, and business travel policy. And there's a lot more in that article that employers could find very valuable.
That sounds like a good story, Anthony. What else you have coming up in the November issue?
Well, we have a spotlight on the cannabis industry. We all know that the question is up for a vote in the November 30 election. We have an environmental engineering spotlight. We have a story on institutional construction. Another construction-related story looking at the top contractors in the state. Mm-hmm. Our annual Profiles in Success special section, and our look at higher education, high-tech commercialization. So a lot of good stuff in this November issue. I hope everyone enjoys it.
All right, Anthony, that sounds like a great issue of New Jersey Business Magazine. If folks want to check it out, just go to njbmagazine.com. Thank you, Anthony, for being here.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time on NJBIA's Minding Your Business.